Yeah, we're live. Did I make it back in time? Yeah, 6:59. Nailed it. Hello, everybody. It is the weekend, and I've been spending it thrashing as usual. Because for several reasons, I'm trying to prep two motors. One of them is a 3800 Series 2 V6 with a supercharger on it. The other one was the Hemi, and I managed to break the Hemi in spectacular fashion, I might add. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. I'll show you how spectacular it was. So this is Hemi stuff. Hemi bits. This, you can even see, look, it still has the coating from the piston. Look, it still has the paint from the block. And that's what I was cleaning up off the floor in the dyno cell. 5.7 Hemi, junkyard motor. Was always kind of down a little bit on power. And I ran a bunch of stuff with it. We ran a cam, I ran a turbo on it, all kinds of stuff. And then made the mistake of not using the plugs in the heads, put some water in it. I think I reverse hydrolocked it probably. It got unhappy and lost oil pressure and decided to kick rods out the sides. Pretty cool. The 3800 is the one that's been sitting around for a long time. I did a video on it where it was in the back of my truck when I got it from the wrecking yard. Yeah, we're going to do a big bang on this thing along with a lot of other testing. And I never got around to doing a compression test or a leak down test. And now, since I wanted to put it on the dyno, I did a leak down test on it, and it failed miserably. Some of them have no leak down. I mean, have no compression at all. So what was I supposed to do? Well, I went over to the wrecking yard to try to find another Hemi today while that one's sitting on the dyno. And now the other 3800 sitting on the dyno. So I went over to the wrecking yard today to try to find a Hemi, and I found two of them at the yard, and both of them were bad. Both of them, neither one of them were vehicles that were hit, which is what I like to choose from, because if the vehicle is damaged, that means that the vehicle is probably totaled and was crashed while it was driving, so it was working, and then they totaled the motor and it came to the wrecking yard. Sometimes I'll take a chance, like with this other 3800 too, and it was not crashed, and we took it out anyway. Well, you know, you live and learn. So there was no Hemi, so I was zeroed out on the Hemi stuff. So then I started looking for a 3800 Series 2 with a supercharger, and I found a couple of those. Two of them were cars that were not crashed, though. So I'm like, that's not going to work. And then one of them had crash damage. So I thought, okay, well, it looks like they probably totaled this thing out. The motor still looks good, and that's the one you saw on the thumbnail that's up on the dyno. It actually had the serpentine belt still on there, the factory belt. It had the blower belt. And as a bonus, it is a Series 3 motor, I believe. It's a 2004, has the drive-by-wire throttle body, and looks like it has the better blower. And the other benefit is that it seems to have compression in all the cylinders, which is something that you'll look for in a test motor. So that is finally, and not without lots of fighting, because as I said, the big deal with getting these new motors, the other guys' motors up on the dyno, is always the bell housing, drive plate, and flywheel kind of assembly, and also getting it mounted on the dyno. And then now the deal is with the 3800, which is up on the dyno, issues over there working on trying to figure out how to get the thing to run on the, we obviously want to run it with the Holly. You know, we think that he can use one of the signals that somebody sent me some information. So whoever did, thank you very much, on theirs running on the Holly. So we think we can use one of the signals because the factory damper has a couple of signals. I think it has the crank and the cam sensor or cam signal in there. So we can use one of those. And hopefully, we're not going to run it sequential, and that's not a big deal because we don't care about that. Normally, I run stuff on. Normally, when I do LS testing anyway, I always run it in batch fire, so I really don't care about that. So hopefully, we can get it running. And if we can get it running and making noise, and I get to the point where I just need to tune it, then that's very easy. And you know, we can start doing some testing on the 3800, which is, you know, fingers crossed. I love getting to the point like with the Dodge where it just, you know, we put it on there and start running, and I'm like, okay, well, now I can add a little timing or take away fuel or whatever. And then it's just keyboard manipulation. That's easy. The other thing that happened today is Troy, my boy over there from West Tech, he managed to get in my junkyard 5.9, managed to get we can take a walk over and take a look at all of this. he managed to get the 2 broken bolts out of the factory iron 5.9 liter Magnum heads, which is very good. One of them was just heat, and then I think he was able to double nut it and take it off. The other one took 2 tries at welding the nut onto the remaining part of the bolt and heating up the head and using penetrating oil, you know, all the steps. I posted something on Instagram about it, and I got a ton of comments about it. I think I got 130 or 140 comments on it. So it was very popular because everyone was chiming in about what they do. And for the most part, it was the same thing that we listed there. You know, first thing you try to do is the easy way is, you know, grab it and squeeze the living bejesus out of it with vice grips. And hopefully you can, you know, penetrating oil, and you can work it back and forth and get it out. And if that doesn't work, then you have to usually apply some heat. And it's always a good idea to nail it a couple of times with a good hammer. And if you have a punch, you can try to do that. Since it already has the nut on it, I don't care if we damage the top of it. It's not a big deal. And then sometimes you can get it out like that. And if it doesn't work, then heat on it and more penetrating oil. And then you start getting into the more serious stuff, and where you start welding the nut on top of it. And in this case, what Troy did is weld the nut on top of it. And the first time it was still stuck. It broke the nut right off of the weld. And then more heating and more penetrating oil, and then more welding the nut on. And then finally he was able to work it back and forth, and it eventually came off. So both of those are out, which means that I can do more testing on that. We're going to do something cool. Hopefully use that motor with the guys from Engine Masters, and that will be some fun stuff. The thing that's amazing, and we'll take a walk over there and I can show you, is that this thing obviously has a lot of miles on it, but after we took the intake manifold off, you can kind of see in there, you can see all of the material from the bottom of the head gasket just flaking off and coming into the lifter valley. So I'm going to have to address that with, you know, the vacuum cleaner and stuff, and get all that stuff out, because that was a running motor. But, you know, when the intake manifold's on there, you can't see any of that. So it's like, okay, well, I don't see, I just close these, everything must be okay, right? But it's not. It's all, I mean, it's coming out in big flakes and finding its way. I'm sure it'll find its way into the oil pump and stuff. But that thing actually ran fairly good. It had good oil pressure, as we saw. It made the same basic power as the crate motor when it had the stock camshaft in it. Now this thing has a cam in it. It's making more power. So it's doing well. So we got some cool testing going on with that. That one belongs to Westech. Mine, I don't care nearly as much about. It was a junkyard motor. And so we can do lots of testing with that. I'm going to do more kegger mods with that. We're going to do different camshafts with that, and then also different cylinder heads. And I also want to do some other intake manifolds, some other carbureted intake manifolds like that Mopar Performance one. But we'll do probably the Speedmaster one, and if I can get a hold of one, Dulcich might have a dual plane Edelbrock, so we can do a comparison there and see. Lots of cool stuff. And then I'm going to run boost on it too, especially after we take the stock heads off and put something else on, or ported stock ones or something. And at least check and make sure that the head gaskets are good, and maybe put some ARP head studs on there or something. Although at the boost level I would be running, I don't know that that's necessary. We might be able to get away with the stock bolts, but we'll run boost on it so that when the pan's off, maybe we'll take and put you know, some drains on it, or a single drain, and because we'll only run one turbo. And my buddy Matt's here from DYNO-I. He's the guy that got me the GT45 turbo. He said, man, you're really putting that GT45 turbo to use. I said, yeah, it goes on everything. It's like the universal turbo. So we put it on everything from the little K series on, you know, on up to a big block Chevy. So, and you know, it makes boost, so it works, and is obviously a little better suited to some of those applications, but it, you know, it makes good power, and it's lasted a long time. So I'm pretty happy with it. So we'll probably try that on the 5.9 Magnum, and then we'll step up to something, you know, a little bit more exciting, and, you know, see where that thing can take us. But I'd like to get that motor to, you know, the 400 horsepower-ish range, I think. I know a lot of guys want to see the kegger manifold with boost, and we can do that. The guys from UT Awesome are sending a modified kegger with a very cool, you know, the big throttle body and stuff, so we can get to run that. And I think that they're also sending a camshaft, so we'll get to try one of their cams, which would be good. So thank you guys, Marty. That's awesome stuff. That will be very cool, because a lot of guys want to see that. That kegger mod is one of the popular deals for guys retaining that manifold. So it'll be interesting to compare, especially after we saw what happened with the comparison between the carbureted, they're different motors, but the carbureted Mopar performance deal and then the factory motor that I got from the wrecking yard. So it's interesting stuff. So let's take a walk over and I'll show you. We can take a walk over at look at the blower motor, look at the dead blower motor, and then the live blower motor. Doing some stuff on this. Hopefully we can maybe get that running. You can see we got some holes in there that I got to address. This is the doesn't work anymore kind of thing. But as you can see, the exhaust perfect for a turbo. So that's awesome. So if anybody's looking for as a matter of fact, if you guys is there anybody around West Tech? If you're around West Tech and you want a free junkyard 3800 Series 2 motor, what's left over after the parts that we take off of it for this one, which is just some of the exhaust stuff and stuff. But if you want to come get that motor and rebuild it and do something with it, come get it. It's free. So if you're around West Tech, I'll give you that motor just so that we can get rid of it. But here is the other one, and here's Ish. Say hi, Ish. What's up? What's up? He's putting this. We're gonna get this guy figured out. Did you get it figured out? No, we're gonna get it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, Ish is on it. So this is the new one. Compression. I'm pretty sure it's a Series 3. It's got the drive-by-wire throttle body, which we'll have to make into a manual version.
It's gonna work.
Yeah, it'll work.
It's gonna work one way or another.
Yeah. If I have to drill a hole in the back of it and put a distributor in there, it's gonna work. All right, T. Thanks, man.
T-Dog.
T-Dog. So we'll walk over here. I'll show you the work that Troy did. What's that? All right, I'll turn it back on if we need it. So here's the Magnum. This is what I was talking about. You can see all this flaky Jake. It's all from underneath here. Try to get you to zoom in here. See all that? All that debris? That's from under here. That's from that gasket right there. It's all over the place. See that? Good stuff, huh? Here are the bolts. See, take a look at that. Troy welding the nut on there. Over here, we even had to clearance that a little bit so that we could get the socket around the bolt or around the nut that was welded on, just so we could get a socket in there. Otherwise, it was not going to cooperate. This side over here was not bad. This side, that bolt came out, so that worked out fine. So we got some plans for this. Obviously, we're gonna have to clean some of that stuff out, but we got plans for it. It's a good little motor. I love when they run, when they're working. But as with all of my other stuff, now it's taken apart. It would be nice to put something together and just have it stay together. So right now, Ish is hooking up that's an LS1 harness, right, Ish?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because it supplies 12 volts, and this trigger system calls for a 12 volt. So
okay.
That's important.
12 on 12?
Yep, 12 on 12.
Right on. And before we run this, I want to, when we hook water up to it, I want to flush some of the water into a 5-gallon bucket. This stuff was look pretty rusty, so I don't want that getting into the dyno wire. So I'll just flush it a couple of times, and
I'll just go in there in the next 10 years and scrape out.
yeah. That's a good stuff. I like when it drains out and it's all green and perfect. Like, oh yeah, this guy was taking care of his stuff. That guy didn't care.
What happened to the ECU?
We took it out, and I think I put it over here. After breaking the Hemi. I blame the ECU. I blame the tune.
It was a 10-minute tune. It took too long.
Yeah.
Could have had like 5 minutes of runtime on it.
I jammed a stick in my spokes, and I blame the tune. Oh, I know. That's see this on my leg right there? That's that. That's that.
That was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm gonna need shots for that. I'm taking off that exhaust because we're gonna have to use that piece.
I'm just moving out of the way if you're walking around.
No, good idea. It's already got me once. Just because it's smarter than me. That's what happens. So that's what's going on right now. And I was hoping if I didn't have two broken motors that I was going to be able to get the Dodge, play with the Dodge a little bit and get that running. Just, you know, start it up. We're going to use that same harness that we're using over there on the 3800. But, you know, when stuff like this happens, when you got to rush over and yank another motor out of there really quick to get some testing done, you know, you got to do what you got to do. That's what happens. So what are you guys doing on a Saturday night? Why are you guys here watching Richard's live feed, man? What's going on? You hate people that don't change oil and Sinister Silverado. You hate people that don't change oil and don't use synthetic. Are you going to change the Magnum to a retro link bar? No, we'll use the factory stuff. Piston delete, yeah, that's right. $95 at a salvage yard. You got a Volkswagen 2.5 liter. Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited about getting. That's why I was so excited about working on the 2.2. Is I just wanted to hear it run. I wanted it to be alive, just like this 3800 and the Hemi too. After the Hemi's been sitting for a long time, and it ran good the last time I ran it. We had the turbo on it, and it, you know, it seemed like it was happy. It didn't seem like it made as much power when I ran it NA right after putting it together. And I just put it together with stuff that I had laying around. I had to go find some lifters over here and a timing chain over here, and you know, we took the motor apart and did the pistons. I don't even know what was going on with the block. If you have time, if I have time, we can just stop right there. Baby Shark's on. Watching the IndyCar race series on TV, holding our tech talk on the computer. Not a bad way to spend the night. That's good. Are you just checking in? Are you going to do the turbocharger and supercharger in compound today? They can't see you. It's all about me. I don't know why you'd think that the camera would be looking anywhere else.
To answer your previous question, offset pin.
Yeah.
Is opposite the direction of the crank. So
it's opposite the direction of the crank. So it's different on both sides then, right? Okay. They will be because it's a factory one. Okay. So now, if we just switch sides, will that work?
If you go with the rotation of the crank, then that might be.
Yeah. Sweet. Let's see. I thought it would be cool to see us test stock cam stuff versus newer link bar style lifter. So you think that a lifter change is going to make a change in power? I'd like to see SRT4 PT GT stuff pushed to the edge. Is the Hemi, this Hemi is not fragile. We've already done 800 horsepower with it, and it'll do a lot more. I've done over 1,000 with stock stuff when the motor's right. The GLT to beat, the GLH to beat is $9.99. Yeah, I'm not going to be drag racing mine. I don't think you'll see a change in power from a link bar versus a standard style lifter. I don't think it would change at all. Have you ever done a 60-degree V6, 2.8 or 3.1? No, there's about 1 million of those over in the wrecking yard, though. Yeah, LS swapped the world. I LS swapped the 2.2 liter distributor. We were laughing at that earlier today. I was showing Matt from DNA, and one of the guys here who had a little Corolla with a 1.6 in it, which was awesome with you know, he had IR stack injection on it, which was very, very cool. And those things, he was winding out, and it was like all kinds of awesome. But I was showing him, and I said, yeah, check this out. He goes, that looks like a crank sensor from an LS. I said, yeah, I LS swapped the distributor. He thought that was clever. I don't know what the reverse rotation deal was. I don't know what their actual reasoning behind it was. I'm not planning on doing anything today on the 3800. I'm hoping we can just get it running. That's all we care about right now. Oh, 2% phone battery. He is living on the edge. Yeah, the H series had a different lining on it. Yeah, the 3800s were used in a lot of places. Lincoln, Nebraska, 600 for a 5.3. The one that I just got was $480 for the 3800 V6, because now they're starting to charge for other things, like, and I have all the front accessories on it, so they're starting to charge for the alternator and the AC. And I really didn't need that because we had it on the other motor, but I just didn't have time to take it off. And they charge for the supercharger, so it's a lot of stuff. I think that the 3800 came out of a 04 GTP. Oh, Dan, so they did it for the JDM cars because they're right-hand drive? Okay. Oh, the Thunderbird SC, those are still both there. I looked at both of them. Yeah, the junkyards, I heard, and I don't know how true this is, but I heard that they don't want people, because there are lots of people that go there and buy stuff and then sell it on eBay, and they're making money off of it, and they don't want that to be the case. They don't want the middleman. I know I really wish that they had frequent flyer models. That'd be awesome at the junkyard. Going to the junkyard tomorrow to look for an LH6 aluminum 5.3. I've never seen one of those in the yard, but that would be cool. So, Richard, what do you think about taking, say, a newer V8 Mustang and added electric motor hubs on the front end to make a hybrid? That's probably beyond my capability. I've never even looked into that. Ben, you have the aluminum heads on your 3800? That's cool. 71 millimeter precision. We will run a compound setup on this eventually. So Reeves, you didn't get paid when you won? Looks like a Gen 3 M90, so a GTP would have to be 2003. This one was a 2004, so like I said, I think it is a Gen 3, or it's a Gen 5 blower in a Series 3 motor. The low RPM boost, the thing that breaks connecting rods is actually torque. It's not RPM, unless you have like extreme RPMs. Snatch loads can break that's where you really hurt bolts, or the bottom end of the rod. Usually torque production is what breaks the beam of the rod. And so that's why they say low speed torque hurts rods. The Hemi broke because I probably reverse hydrolocked it. It filled full of water because I didn't put the plugs in the heads. That's what I'm thinking. That's my guess. We drained a lot of oil and water out of it. I have never run twin Eatons on the M90. That was originally the plan when I did the Eaton upgrade on the 4.8 liter. My original plan was to cant, two of them together in a little TP application, but it was more work than I wanted to do. Just putting one on there with an adapter plate was much easier. An electric crate motor, that would be cool. When does the blower become a restriction? There are two ways to look at that. And one way, and this was my discussion when we were talking about the supercharger that we ran on the 03 Cobra, which was a 112, I think. And that's that we did a compound on it with the guys from HP Performance. And you can think about it two ways. In terms of ultimate power, just get the blower out of the way, let the turbos do their thing, and then you can make whatever power the turbos are capable of, assuming that the motor can take that. The other way to look at it is if you have a 300 horsepower motor and you're trying to spool the turbos at whatever power level, it will do something. If you put a blower on it and now it's a 450 horsepower motor, now you can spool those turbos much quicker because it's a 450 horsepower motor trying to spool the same turbos that you did with a 300. So the boost response is going to be much better, and it's probably going to be more fun to drive. The thing is, you're going to have a lot higher boost going into the manifold, but in the case of the 03 Cobra, we had an air-to-air intercooler from the turbos, and they were only running 7 pounds, and we also had the factory air-to-water cooler underneath the blower. So we had very cold charge temperatures despite the fact that we were running over 20 pounds of boost on the motor. If you correlate it to boost versus power, the compound stuff doesn't do as well. Like if you have 20 pounds of boost just from the turbos, you're going to make a lot more power than 20 pounds of boost from the compound. But a lot of guys don't look at it that way. So you can, it's a half empty, half full kind of thing, either way you look at it. What's the most you've seen in L67? I'm not up on what the L67 guys are doing. I only ran one way back in the day when we were doing the Rammer technology stuff, and I don't think we only made 300 or 350 horsepower at the flywheel, so it wasn't very much. It was just, a 3.2 pulley, or we may have tried a 3-inch pulley. I think we tried ported heads back then, but they didn't seem to do much because we didn't put a cam in it. So we had a stock camshaft in there, so it didn't make very much power. Oh, that's Gen 5 in the video thumbnail. I know a bunch of 3800 guys are excited to see what kind of testing you get done. Yeah, it'll be cool. I'm excited that it's that blower and it's not the early one, so it should do a little bit better. But it also gives us lots of options because I've got, and I don't know when we'll get to that, but I have lots of different hovers and pulleys and all that, so we can change all that. I'm curious to see how much horsepower that 3800 blower uses, like what it makes at 10 pounds versus the turbo at 10 pounds. The problem with that test is that you'd have to have a different intake manifold on there too, and that's going to make a difference. And that's not going to be a good comparison. Kenny Bell, I think, has blower dynoed the M90 supercharger before, so he probably knows how much it takes to drive that thing at different boost and flow levels. 150 pounds of boost, Dan. I guess you win the boost contest. So the discharge temperature was 80 degrees Fahrenheit. What were you using to cool it? How would you determine that the supercharger is becoming a restriction? You determine that by running the supercharger by itself. So if the supercharger can only support, let's say, 450 horsepower to give you a number, when you blow through it, the supercharger becomes more efficient. Part of why you have a higher boost level than just adding the two together, because the blower has to draw air in. So if you force feed it in, all of a sudden that's not a restriction anymore. The blower gets happier. But the blower is in the way. If you have a 450 horsepower blower and you have 1,000 horsepower on it, the blower's in the way. In Australia, we've seen over 600 wheel horsepower and 9s at the track from an L67. I'm certain that that's possible. If for no other reason than every other factory forced induction motor that I've ever tried was way overdeveloped. And even motors that were not designed for forced induction, like the LS, for instance, are way overdeveloped, and you can make lots of power with them. The 5.9 torque curve was essentially identical with the keg intake or the dual plane. You thought that keg would be more like a TPI intake. Sounds like it's better. Any thoughts? It's not. On that stock motor, it's not any better, and it's not any different down low. The dual plane carbureted intake is actually very good at low engine speeds. And remember, in addition to the design of the dual plane is also benefiting from charge cooling that the kegger is not getting. HVAC, an LS, like if you put a 6-liter in there, it would be head and shoulders above. Like even a stock 6-liter is going to be what a fairly heavily modified Magnum is going to be, because a stock 6-liter is going to make 600 the way that we tested it, and to get to 600 on a Magnum is going to take a lot of doing. Well, Kevin, what do you got? You're good? You got a signal? Let's walk over there. It's just got a signal. That means we're getting close. That means we've got some exciting stuff going on. You don't even look at me. I can't even look at you. Stupid broken motors. It wants to run though. We almost put it up just to see if we could get a signal with the not good one. Let's see what we got going on. Yeah, we got RPM. What's up? So how did you hook it up?
Well, I pulled up the pinout diagram.
Okay.
And I thought they were these at first because they were kind of close. But
yeah.
These made more sense.
Okay.
I could have pulled it off and continuity checked them, but
yeah. Just swap them
cam
around.
and crank, they're hooked up. All we got to do is just finesse with the firing order.
Okay.
So that we can get cylinder 1 firing at the right time.
Okay.
But the most important part was to get RPM, because without RPM, motors won't run.
Now we're going to run LS coils on this?
Yes.
Okay.
This is why we have the LS1 harness.
Okay.
The reason, one, because it does have the coils.
Yeah.
And 2, because this system uses a 12-volt feed for the cam and crank.
Yeah. So we can't use the LS3 harness.
Yeah, the LS3 has a 5-volt feed,
volt,
so that wouldn't work. It wouldn't amplify the signal high enough.
So I just need to figure out a way to mount the coils, and then we'll just run the LS wires from the coils down the plugs, right? We'll just that should all work as long as we mount it close enough. Okay.
Yeah, as long as 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2, because they are pinned to their numbers.
Okay. So are we going to have to change will we have to change the wiring harness for the coils for the LS coil path? We won't, right? You'll just select them, right?
Like I said, the firing order will change the we'll change whichever cylinders are going to the coils.
Yeah. And this will this be batch?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we can actually run a sequential.
But we don't have to.
Yeah, we have a cam seat. So
yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, there's a little bit of a benefit of running sequential, but
okay.
Batch fire usually.
Well, maybe we can do a test, huh?
Yeah.
Sequential versus batch, yo.
Versus batch.
I've done that before, but with the when we did the LS stuff, all I want to see is it like come to life and go, here, less fuel, here, more fuel, here, less timing, more timing. Oh, too much time.
Yeah, it's usually too late.
Yeah, it tells you. All right, so I'll keep putting the exhaust and all that stuff on.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then I'll document this in case in case I need to run out or something.
Okay.
Actually, I'll pin them now.
So are you gonna make a plug for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this was just for the quick test.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm good.
So.
Okay.
It works.
All right. And I can get the water hooked up. I can get the exhaust hooked up.
Actually,
we're not using any of that, right?
No.
None of that. No.
I mean, we could, but it's more work. I mean, the LS plugins are already there.
Yeah. No, I like the LS stuff. And this way we can also change the dwell, right, on the coils.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Typical, LS coil dwells are from 4.5.
Yeah.
People have gone up to 6. With different different coils. But
we've made 1500 with it for 4.5, and that seems to fine. It's like if we bring the plug gap down, all that seems to work out good.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
So when do you think we can? When do you think we'll be in a position to fire?
You just want to spray some carb cleaner and open headers. Or open ports.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Raw, and yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
We can actually time it without it having, without the motor to be run. Because it'll, once it sees RPM, it'll try and fire, and we'll see what it's commanding.
Yeah.
For crank, and then we'll point out the balancer, and if it's close enough, it's good enough.
Probably lighter. Okay.
Yeah. Easy enough.
Sweet.
All right.
All right, I'll let you get back to work, and I'll be done here shortly. How late are you staying?
I don't know. I'm actually kind of excited now that we got RPM.
I know.
Because I didn't know.
That's the big step. If you get a signal for that, that's good.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that the Holly's got the pull-up resistor in it.
Okay.
And it just helps with these Hall effect sensors.
Yeah.
You don't have to put, add a pull-up resistor to amplify the signal.
Okay. Sweet. Well, you want to see issues on the tune. That's always the hardest part, just getting it to light up. It looks like it's going to. Well, let's see where are we at here. No, we're good. All right, so hopefully, fingers crossed. I still have a little bit of work, obviously, to do. When if we can get that thing to light up, that would be good. I haven't checked those injectors yet to see if they flow. I'm gonna have to pull those out. We'll take them over to the ASNU machine and run. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna go eat with the guys.
Okay.
They want me to go, so,
No, go.
I'm happy that I got this. At least I'll see if I can stop by later today or maybe tomorrow. I'm finished because I know that's the next test.
Yeah. We don't have to run that until 3rd or 4th or whatever.
Okay.
But I also have a 5-liter Ford that we got to do too.
Okay.
So, whatever.
I'll be on it then.
All right. Ish making it happen. Time to make engine noises. Whoop! Batch fire. Batch fire's good. I was surprised when I did the test with the LS, running it batch and sequential, because all of the tuner guys are like, oh no, you got to run sequential. It makes so much power. No, how about no? It didn't really do very much. I wanted it to be 10 or 20 horsepower, and it was not. And then I wanted it to be another 10 or 20 horsepower when we went in and did individual cylinder trim, and it was not. 4.9 caddy swap is on for the Fiero. I've actually seen one of those, I think. Don't put him on the spot. Don't put who on the spot? This is more like a performance hospital than a tuner shop. Tuner shop, that's hilarious. Nolan, I own an 04 Mach 1 Mustang. Are cams worth it? The engine 5/8 long tube headers and a JLT fender. What else did you do? I want to see 350 wheel horsepower. What's an 04 is still a, is that a 2-valve? Can you see what a Ford Vulcan can take? So Dan, you said it had an intercooler in between each one. So, but how do you get it to 80 degrees Fahrenheit unless it's like 40 degrees or 50 degrees outside? Because even with 2 intercoolers, you can't get it at less than ambient, and chances are you can't get it down to ambient. Clear. An EcoBoost in the Fiero or the Quad 4, which is what they should have put in there. A 1,500 horsepower Fiero. That's just silliness. Our tests are run 60 degree Fahrenheit. Fremont by the bridge. Oh, cool. I remember racing a guy with my 240Z, or it was a 260Z, with a guy in a 914 that had a Chevy small block in it. It was really quick. Uncle Squirrel's in the house. I'd be happy with my 5-liter 306 to go up to 6,800. So it needs a little bit of cam and a short runner intake for that, and some spring. The Quad 4 should fit fine in the Fiero. Yeah, James, there's no reason that it can't. I mean, we know from doing all of the blower testing versus turbo stuff that I've done that if we're running an M90 on it and turning it all the way up, you know, as much boost as it will do. For one thing, when we were doing those in the car, we were doing it with no intercooler on it. So that's just silly. And we were doing it with no E85. We were using race gas, so we had enough timing in it and stuff. But even back then, we couldn't tune the computer. All we did was sensor manipulation, and I played with things on our stage 2 math. Oh man, good times, good times. What's up?
Going to the big catch if you wanted to.
Okay. No, I'll stay and work on that and get that done.
I might just come back.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you know.
All right, man. Yeah, bring me back some steak and lobster.
All right, for sure.
Or a slice of pizza, anything. Let's see. There have been many Quad 4 Fiero swap downs. That seems like a natural thing. I mean, that was a good, it had enough RPM, it had enough power, and it was a lot better than the Iron Duke motor. Donovan, I think you sent me a thing on the lightweight crank. I don't, on the stroker deal, unless you're really wanting to run lots of RPM, wouldn't worry about the lightweight crank option. They say it'll make it rev like a street bike. It's not going to do that. Oh, Brian, it does require a specific trans. Steak and lobster adds 50 horsepower. Does pizza add any? Or Jack in the Box tacos? Richard, are you going to put EQ heads on the Magnum 360? I don't have any, and I haven't found any, but the guys from Speedmaster have iron heads, so we're probably going to try those. And they also have aluminum heads, so we might try those as well. I don't know that we need to get crazy with it. It's going to ultimately be limited in, I would imagine, in piston to valve clearance. You know, how much camshaft we can put in is kind of going to determine what kind of power we can make. You know, it needs a piston, or maybe it needs a little, as a matter of fact, I'll grab that right now. So if we don't put a piston in that has, you know, valve reliefs in it, we could also use this. Oh, look at the design that makes in the camera. That's super sweet. Wah, 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 wah. That'll cut some piston notches. That'll give you some valve clearance there. This looks like the one that I used when we were doing the, and it even has a stop so you don't go too far. That looks like the one that I used on the Super Cobra Jet. Yeah, if you want your V8 to really zing like a sport bike, then you got to do a few things to it. But one of the things is that you put a clutch on it that's about this big, like the Tilton clutches we ran in the road races cars. It has essentially no flywheel on it because it had a flex plate basically, so that we could use our conventional starter. But then it had this like little triple disc on it. You just don't want to be slipping the clutch very much. I know. I wish that they would sell that 442. That would have been a good car. Maybe the microphone's vibrating when I talk. How about this? Drum roll, please. The mic noise walks away. How about if I move my mic a little bit? Can you hear mic noise now? How about if I put that over here? How's that? Is that better? Dun, dun, dun. Fun with mics. How's the mic noise? Is it better now? Worse? The same? Yeah, the sprint cars didn't have, the sprint cars were even better. They had no clutch at all. Put the biggest cam in the Magnum. I don't know what will fit. Are there any Magnum guys out there? Do you know how much, has anybody actually measured piston to valve clearance to know how much camshaft you can put in there? I think that the limiting factor for the Magnum heads is not the piston to valve. I think it's retainer to seal. But if you cure that stuff on the head and put good springs on it, that will take a, 230-ish, 235 intake duration camshaft, and then something that's probably 550, 560, maybe 570 lift. When you get out on that much intake duration, you're probably going to have a wide-ish LSA too to get the piston to valve clearance. Like you can't have a 106 with a cam like that unless you use this. Then you can. You can have all of that. Jack, what size turbo will you use on the 4200? We have lots of turbos to choose from. So we have turbos that go from, I don't know, what's the 3076, 500 horsepower up to over 1,000 horsepower. In fact, if Freiberger wasn't looking and we borrowed his that S480, it will do quite a bit more than that. And we have everything in between. We have the GT3582, we have the GT45, we have a couple of S475s. We have I don't know if I have that. I don't think I have that little precision anymore. I think I gave that to my buddy Jimmy. Oh, Dan, that's good. They wanted to throw us out for not using a scatter shield. And I said, why does it need a scatter shield? It doesn't have a clutch. The next year they changed the rules. That's what happens. I have not pulled the 2.5. I have not been able to fit that into the... If I just don't sleep, I think I probably could get that done. I haven't done any testing yet on the electronic wastegates. That's a good question. What do you think that the future is with those? Will they replace, CO2 having pressurized stuff? It'll be interesting to see if they last long and will. The problem with wastegates is it's such a terrible environment. I mean, we in our Bonneville car remember burning the lines off the wastegate, the reference lines, and unfortunately, it limits boost control when you do that because the wastegate gets hot. It's in the hot exhaust, so it's not happy at all. And having other stuff work there is also a hard deal. I need to get with Marty over at TurboSmart and see about using some of those because that would be very cool. Aaron, do you pull the inner spring for flat tappet cam break-in when using double? You can. I don't remember doing that. I may have done that when we were doing all of the flat tappet stuff way back when I was doing all of the muscle car legends, like the 365 horse 327 and the LT1, the DZ302 and the Boss stuff. We may have done that. The other option, like for the Chevys, is Comp makes like low ratio rockers, like 1.2s or 1.3s, I think. And you can do that too, so that we'll break in and it will not be at high lift. And when we're breaking them in, obviously we're at low RPM too. I didn't have nearly as much of a problem with the solid lifter cams as we did with the hydraulic, the solid flat tappet cams as I did with the hydraulic flat tappet cams. But back when we were doing it and people were having trouble with these things going away, with the cams or the lifters going away, is I would coat the heck out of the cams with Molly, like assembly lube, and the same thing for the bottom of the lifters. We would use high zinc, everything and additive and break-in oil and everything. Just try to overkill it, and that always worked out fairly well for the break-in on the flat tappet stuff. Freiberger's probably watching, so I wouldn't touch that. Well, we're not going to do that now. I'm going to see David next week because he's coming down for Engine Masters. What turbo would you recommend for a 3800 L36 as a starting point? It just depends on what kind of power do you want. A GT3582 would work on a 3800, and you could get 500, ish at the tire if you wanted that much. But at lower boost levels, it probably would work fairly well. Oh, $1,000 per gate for those? Yeah, I'm definitely going to hit Marty up for that. I have looked at the free valve technology. I haven't looked into it for actually using it, though. Yeah, Donovan, if you're going to add lift, adding duration obviously tames the cam down because of the ramp rate and makes it more stable and happy. And that's why you do both of those. I get asked all the time, why can't I run giant lift with my stock cam? Like, why can't I run a 1.9 rocker? you're definitely going to have problems with that combination. I would love to have electronic control of the wastegate. One of the things that I would like, especially, for instance, when we're doing the Big Bang, I want it to be referenced with RPM. So in that case, turbo is nice because it goes up, if you're making 10 pounds, it goes up, makes 10 pounds, and then carries 10 pounds all the way across. But what if you don't want that curve? What if you want the curve from we use a manual wastegate controller too, and it is whatever it is because the back pressure is acting on it and stuff. And, the bleed rate is not exactly perfect. But the other thing we want is an RPM reference one so we can make a curve like a centrifugal if that's what we want. Obviously, the turbo we showed when we were comparing the ProCharger and the turbo, that a turbo has a lot more average power production because it has a lot more average boost production. But if you don't want that because of traction or because, in our case with the Big Bang stuff, we don't want to have so much torque that we break the rods before we get to a really high, gee whiz kind of horsepower number for the Big Bang stuff, then that's a good reason for it too. Max area flat tappets. We've looked at a lot of those for the dirt track stuff because I've helped guys do dirt track cams and we're pretty familiar with them. Donovan, for the cams, they say that valve guides would need to be clearance, for clearance, and before you fit a cam large enough to hit the piston. Well, and that's not unlike the stuff with the Chevy and the Vortec guys. If I take a head in and we're going to have it surfaced and have it set up for springs, I don't mind cutting the guide, cutting it for a different seal. I don't like cutting the pad usually, but if we have to do that and change the install height to the spring and stuff, all of that's easily doable if it means that then we can show what the flow potential and the power potential of the head is without having to worry about those other limitations for camshaft selection. I remember somebody using a fish tank air pump diverter valve. We used those all the time back in the day. And the problem with those is that there's no adjustment, and then there's all the adjustment. And so it can be a little touchy. Have you run a Holley Sniper with a turbo? If you're asking Holley Sniper questions, you need to be very specific. Are you talking about a Sniper intake manifold? Are you talking about the regular Sniper or the short runner Sniper or the race Sniper? Are you talking about a Sniper fuel injection or a throttle body inject? What are you talking about? The answer is probably no, if it's anything but a Sniper intake manifold, the answer is probably no. I haven't run that under boost. Yeah, we can make the turbo do still whatever the turbo is sized to do. That's one of the common things that I remember when we were talking about testing response rate on turbos, even though the engine dyno is not ideal for that. But it will show kind of what the turbos do, because even with a sustained load like we give, it's an artificial one when we're starting the load on the on the engine dyno compared to a chassis dyno or out on the street, because you're never at wide open throttle like that. But even doing that, if the turbo isn't spooled up all the way and then you release it and it gets going and it gains RPM and starts making more power, and then we start seeing the ramp rate of the turbo, a lot of guys think that, well, you need an electronic boost controller. Well, an electronic boost controller before the turbo is spooled up doesn't do anything because the wastegate's closed. So we're still waiting on the turbo to control the boost. We're still waiting on the turbo to produce the boost so that then we can control the boost. I've seen guys use the blow-off valve or wastegate on the discharge side of a centrifugal supercharger. The guys at Real Time Racing, PD and those guys did it on their NSX long ago. And it's the other way that you can do that is you can limit the inlet of the blower, which the blower manufacturers would obviously rather see you do, because you're speeding the blower up and you're letting it free flow a bunch of air, which free flowing a blower at maximum speed is not good. Looks like the 280H is the wildest cam you can run on a Magnum. They use an LA block with the Magnum heads, though. Yeah, so I don't know that combination is different. Evan, where were you? Why were you here earlier? I just walked you over and showed you what the 3800 was. I showed you two 3800s, as a matter of fact, a Series 2 and a Series 3. So, you know, if you're not going to show up on time, we can't stop the class for you. Actually, we can stop the class because it's about time for me to go. I obviously have work to do. I have lots of work to do on the 3800. It's up on the dyno right now, and we're trying to get it running. Ish already got it, so we have a signal, which is the hardest part. So now it's hopefully we can get it working and start making some noise. Let's make some noise. I'll go back. No, all we do is walk in, and I just showed you I showed you a few things. I showed you the broken 3800 Series 2, the one that I replaced today, the broken one, with a good one, hopefully. And it's also a Series 3 motor, so it has the good blower on it. It also has a drive-by-wire throttle body. I then also walked you in and showed you the Magnum that Troy was able to take the broken head bolts out of, which was kind of awesome. We did a walk by on the 2.2 liter turbo, and we talked about all the things, and then the broken Hemi. I didn't show you guys the broken Hemi, did I? Where the heck is that thing at? Oh, I did. We showed you some broken piston pieces. So we'll make you a really good deal on this. Piston parts. Yeah, if you look at the 2.2 liter Chrysler, they were ahead of their time. They had the throttle body mounted in front of the turbo long ago. No, I can't actually do dyno runs and do this all at the same time. That's hard. 2.2 liter Chrysler versus the 3800. That's going to be a tough row for the 2.2 liter. Dyno question: what connects the motor to the dyno? Yeah, it has we have a drive plate with a spline coupler. As a matter of fact, I'll show you what the drive spline looks like. So this is what's attached to the dyno. And then we have basically what looks like a clutch. It's a drive plate, slides on here. This drives the drive plate. The drive plate is attached to a flywheel or a flex plate. And then the motor uses that to spin the dyno. Have you ever tested running the throttle body in front of a turbo as an anti-lag? I have not. But it's something we might be able to do on the 2.2 because it's already set up. It is easily 1,000 horsepower ready. What's the plan with the next 5 liter you're doing? We're doing the junkyard upgrade. We're going to do Explorer heads and Explorer intake manifold and a camshaft. Boosted Lifestyle, what's up? Compounds, you're interested. Hopefully, if things go well, if we can get the 3800 running and it's happy, which I think it is, then compound stuff in a turbo blowing into the blower. And which means an intercooler finally for the thing. It definitely needs it. Richard, do you have a lot of prep work on the Magnum behind you to get it to run? No, it's already run. It's already run a lot. That's the crate motor. Yeah, that was extra piston skirt. There will be an intercooler between the turbo and the blower. So the turbos will blow into an intercooler the same way, or it'll be a single turbo blowing into our air-to-water ProCharger intercooler that we use on almost everything. And then that air, that cooled discharge air, will go into the blower. Every cam is a turbo cam. That's called an aftercooler. People that argue about that stuff, it's silly. What's the most beer you've drank in one sitting? Not even one. I don't drink beer. Got to be like Banks and call it an aftercooler versus the intercooler. I know they got into all that. I remember the Vortec guys selling their aftercooler, which we put on the 5-liter stuff, and I'm like, you know, this is unnecessary. This is like the motor and engine argument and all that other stuff. Then methanol after the blower. That's one area where, like, I would be interested in using that, because I have the Snow boost cooler stuff, and we've run it on a lot of things. And I think that on a 3800 with a roots blower, I think that'd be a good application for it. There's no intercooler after the M90 on this. We're just running it with the blower on the manifold the way that it is. Every turbo is a cam turbo. Exactly. Boosted, what do you think about the ProCharge Hemi owning the no prep scene right now? I'm sure somebody's going to chime in about, but there's no, is there a weight break for the ProCharge curve versus the turbo stuff? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are on no prep. I didn't think that there were any rules on no prep. And I talked about that a little bit on my comparison between the turbo stuff and the centrifugal blower stuff, and that was that the boost curve, the rising boost curve offered by a centrifugal blower of any centrifugal blower. Now it may start off on the race applications really high and just get really, really high, but that's a form of traction control. Because if you have a turbo motor and you have way too much power and you're having to manage that, which I'm sure you probably are on the ProCharger too, a little bit too, but if you're having to manage that and you have 400 extra and you got to take that out before you start getting traction, that ProCharge guys have maybe all that they can use and only have to manage it a little bit down low, and then they have all the big end. You know, that might be part of it. The oval track cams are pretty aggressive ramp rates. They because of the RPM range they're running, they make a lot of average power production. They're usually really tight LSA stuff. Duke's Mopar Garage. I had a friend of mine put together a spicy stock bottom end 302. I don't. You have to tell me what spicy means, but an E303 GT40 P heads, Chinese 76 millimeter. Win 1040s, that's certainly possible. The weight break favors the ProChargers. I thought somebody mentioned that in one of the live feeds before too. We will run E85 on the 3800. That will be one of the tests that we get to. Yeah, Dan, that's one thing that a lot of guys don't realize is that I had a friend of mine that worked at, where did he work at? One of the NASCAR guys, one of the shops, one of the engine shops, and he was telling me how specific they are with the combinations for the different tracks, different heads, different intake manifolds, different displacements, different bore and strokes, all kinds of different things. And obviously camshaft plays into that a lot. Diesel fuel pumps could push that much CFM in O2, couldn't they? Did the 3.8 liter supercharge come in the Grand Prix? Yes, it came in the Grand Prix GTP. And Novi 1000, a good supercharger? Yes, for lower power levels, it works good. When boosting the 5.7 Hemi to 600 horsepower, what would you recommend? Cam, springs, and a GT45 turbo, E85, an intercooler, the right fuel pump, and a good tune. If you're going to try to do that for extended periods, and a Hemi especially, and a Hemi more than others, I would recommend ring gap too. A compound on the 3800 is definitely one of the things that we want to test. The Novi 2000 is going to be twice as good, and then the 2200 is even better, or the 2500. Going to make something else, right? What is the setup going to be on your 3800? Well, right now it's the motor that I drove over and pulled out. Well, I didn't pull it out. I actually had somebody do this because we were doing lots of stuff here. But I drove over and picked it up and put it up on the dyno, so it's the way that it came out of the wrecking yard. For an LM7 4.8 liter and 5.3, can you use the same stock cam with a turbo setup? The cam is the same in both of those, so it is the same cam, and you can use the stock cam with a turbo. And 400 to 500 horsepower is easy with a stock cam. Make a plate to run like 4 of those 500cc eBay superchargers. You know what I should do? We should run 8 turbos on there, right? Because that just goes right on and everything works out perfect and it's easy and you just go to the dyno the next day and it all works out perfect, right? Yeah, the Honda Rod Journal stuff is very common. A lot of guys were doing that when we were doing the Engine Master stuff. They're sitting in my garage still. They're sitting in your garage. Is 1 or 2 of them still not making boost? Or is it too soon? I have lots of broken motors over here too, so I know how all that stuff goes. Nothing ever works out. How much boost does the 3800 supercharger make? When it's stock, or when we pull it up, or when we add a boost? They're not happy with life. Sometimes I know how they feel. Do you think that the compound setup will double the boost? If the blower is making 8 pounds, we can easily double the boost. We could triple it. We could quadruple it with the turbos if we wanted to. John, I would imagine that the booster styles do make a difference on a blow-through carburetor. I've never tested a back-to-back on the same blow-through carbureted application to find out what that difference is, though. Okay, who's going to get the last question? Because it's time to get going. I got stuff to do, yo. Yeah, ultimate. Okay, here's the last one. This is another 3800 question about getting rid of the turbo completely. The ultimate goal is obviously get the blower out of the way, because a compound thing's really cool and it'll probably be the most popular video. But the thing is that it really is in the way of what the turbos can do. You know, the blower just helps you spool the turbo up. So if you have a really big turbo and you have the blower there, it will spool up quicker. But then it just gets in the way. So if you get it out of the way and just run in some sort of naturally aspirated intake manifold, you know, there are, I don't know, it seems like there's 15 or 20 of them for that 3800 Series 2 series of motors, the NA stuff, that there are lots of different ones. But if you run one of those and just run the turbo through it, or twins, whatever you want to do, you can make lots and lots of power. You can make as much power as your components that you chose will take. So you don't really need the blower there. The blower doesn't help you do that. And a lot of guys get confused, especially guys that are fairly new to what all of this is. You know, the ultimate thing is like, you know, you look at Mad Max and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. I want to be able to turn the blower on and off. That's really neat. But just like with this compound stuff, oh, if I had a turbo, that's good. A blower is good. If I had turbo and a blower, that's even better. And then if I add nitrous on top of that, look at what guys are doing that are really going fast. They're usually picking one of those and doing that and not multiples of them, because when you do that, it becomes problematic. And like I said, the thing is, it's not necessary, because the amount of power that you can make with a good turbo system, with a good blower system, with a good nitrous system, all of those things can do amazing things. And there's not really a reason to be compounding them unless we're venturing back to the Pro Street days, which I think was awesome. I mean, they looked great. But I don't think any of them really ran very well, not compared to if you take a look at that stuff, which was really flashy and cool, but compare it to like, look at a drag week or a no prep combination. You're like, yeah, that's really kind of the way to do it. It makes a lot more power. Okay, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up. Hopefully the audio was good with my new mic placement. I got to get over the 3800, start putting exhaust stuff on, get the water going. Check the injectors. You know, it's just hours and hours of fun. Thanks for showing up, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Do 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 do.